Hey there, hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the News Project Live on Friday, October 9th. I'm Andrew McKeever, the news director at GNAT-TV's News Project. It's great to be with you again, as always. Um, it is the start of Columbus Day weekend, or I should say Indigenous Peoples Weekend, it is, as it is now officially known. Hope you're all going to have a pleasant weekend. Looks like the weather's going to be great again, and hope you have a chance to get out and enjoy the fall weather. Maybe do a little shopping or whatever else along the way. Relatively quiet week, I think, anyway, in terms of local news. So we'll just go straight to Montpelier to get us started here today. Um, Three pieces of legislation that have been on long-term discussion up in the legislature were sort of resolved this week. First one is the Cannabis Bill S54. Governor Scott has allowed the legislation to create a legal market for marijuana to go into law without his signature, allowing the way for recreational cannabis dispensaries to open up in Vermont, um, possibly as soon as October of 2022, 2 years away. Um, Governor had long been concerned about saliva testing about the legislation, with the lack of a good test for that to determine impairment while you're driving. Another issue that emerged sort of towards the end was whether or not the bill, as was crafted, was sort of not as equally, didn't provide as much racial equity in the marketplace as it might have. Some concerns came up towards the end about that. But in the end, he allowed it to become a law without a signature. So I guess we'll see how it goes. That sort of take us to the next step from where we were at. You'll recall, many of you will recall, about 2 years ago, the legislature made it legal to possess up to an ounce of marijuana and grow. I believe, I'm going from memory here, I think it was three or four mature plants at home, but kind of left unclear how one was supposed to acquire that ounce if that was what you were buying. Um, so this way, now we're kind of on track to kind of follow what Washington and Colorado and a few other states have done, and open up a legal and regulated cannabis market where there'll be taxes assessed and regulations imposed, and presumably qualified vendors, much like liquor stores operate, I guess, would be the closest analogy. Uh, and Sort of answer that whole question about how people are supposed to acquire it. Um, but anyway, the governor, in a letter to the lawmakers, said um, that well, he criticized the legislation for giving Vermont's existing medical marijuana dispensaries an unfair head start in market access. So he wanted to see, I guess, a more level playing field going on, and also um, restrictions on marketing so that it will prohibit advertising to children or young adults, and prohibit marijuana vaping products. So anyway, one milestone passed. That was a bill that had been long under discussion down there, up there, I should say. But that's finally reached a closing point. Another bill that the governor allowed to become law again without his signature um, is a bill known as S, or Senate for Senate 119, and that it's a bill that sort of sets a standard for law enforcement use of force and deadly force. Um, that became a even more kind of a relevant topic, of course, this year when we saw a lot of you know unrest in some major cities, a lot of it racially driven. Um, that the bill basically stipulates that police may use deadly force when it is, quote, objectively reasonable and necessary, unquote, to apprehend a suspect believed to pose an imminent threat to others, um, and when there was no other reasonable alternative that would prevent death or serious injury to law enforcement officers or others. Um, Obviously, a very touchy and controversial bill. It went back and forth between both the House and the Senate before they were able to come up with a compromise language on it, and the governor, like I said, has now allowed that to become law without his signature. He waited enough time for that to happen. So um, we may be hearing more about this not too far down the road. Interesting piece of legislation. Third bill I just wanted to mention, and many of you probably by now have already heard of it, or the action that was taken on it. Act 250, landmark land use legislation passed first initially in 1970. It's 50 years old this year. Act 250, of course, well known for uh, determining what kinds of development may happen in various places around the state, and has come in for a lot of praise and a lot of criticism over the past 5 decades. Um, the legislature has been working on a revision of Act 250 now for at least 2 years and probably longer than that. And we're struggling to come up with a compromise that would sort of clarify or update the legislation to bring it closer into the realities of the 2020s. Um, and after a lot of time and a lot of work, they kind of wound up coming up with well, it's been described as a watered down version of some of the other revisions that folks were hoping for to see in terms of what developments would be okay and what wouldn't in this current day and age. But they wound up coming up with a bill that would have set up best management practices for trails and outdoor recreation, while beginning to address forest fragmentation, that the division of forests and the development patterns that would break up those natural habitats. But the governor vetoed that bill last Monday, I believe. And since the legislature didn't set a date or a time for a possible veto session when they would return, when they adjourned last week, uh, it was the end of the session. Uh, Unlike in some other sessions, they've set up a veto period when they could come back and attempt to override a veto. They didn't schedule one for this time around, and I'm assuming that had to do with the calendar, and it's an election year and all of that. So anyway, that bill that would have addressed the management practices for trails and outdoor recreation is has been rejected by the governor. He said that the bill fell, I guess, far short of what he wanted to see in terms of modernizing or improving the Act 250 process. I'm assuming that's a reference to the fact that appeals of local Act 250 commissions can take a long time to get resolved, and there's been a lot of concern about how it basically slows that whole process down to the point where it's difficult to get a lot of projects up and running. At least that's been one of the criticisms, anyway, over the years. Now, the governor did issue an executive order that directs the State's Agency of Natural Resources to begin to establish a best management practice-based program that could facilitate compliance with Act 250 criteria if a trail network is required to obtain a permit. And it also requires the agency to report back on any legislative changes that might be needed to promote high-quality recreational trails that support the recreational economy. So it wouldn't be surprising to see the legislature, when they return in January, to maybe take this up again and see if they can put together another compromise that would sort of meet some of the governor's concerns, as well as some of the other issues involved with updating and revising that very important and historic piece of legislation. Otherwise, at the governor's press conference today, Friday, is now basically an education update day, where Secretary Dan French tells everyone what's going on in terms of how schools are reopening and how the coronavirus is being controlled. And I guess the basic message he had for us today was so far so good on school reopenings. Case counts remain very low. More in-person classroom time is being dialed in, and it's a very step-by-step kind of process. Obviously, still a lot of remote or hybrid learning going on, but things are gradually moving in the right direction. Um, One thing he did note was that there will not be wrestling or indoor track in winter sports this year, based on concerns about the close contact involved in both of those sports. There is a task force that is also studying whether other winter sports, like basketball and hockey, uh, can go forward. And he said that there would be more guidance around that coming by the end of this month. Also, there was a mention of the childcare hubs that are up and running across the state for students who need a place for remote learning and don't have that at home. Um, One has started in Manchester, as I mentioned last week, at the Park House at the Rec Park. We're going to be working on a little news segment about that, which hopefully will be ready sometime next week, and we'll learn a little bit more about what goes on with there. But there is a hub for those working parents who might feel like this would be important to have their child involved with. It's open from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Again, over at the Rec Park. Right now, I think it's open 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday, but they're going to a full 5 day a week schedule, I believe, next week. Anyway, more to come on that. Otherwise, just wanted to mention to those of you who tuned in on Wednesday afternoon around 4 o'clock for our live Senate debate with the 5 candidates who are running for the state Senate seat from Bennington County. I apologize that you were disappointed. Mother Nature had other plans. That A sudden thunderstorm blew through, particularly south of us here, and knocked out power in Bennington, where 3 of our candidates were dialing in from. So we had to cut that short just as we were getting started. The good news is that we are on to resume that discussion and debate on Monday, October 12th, again at 4 p.m. You'll be able to watch it on GNAT-TV's website, gnat-tv.org. Also on our channel 1074, our YouTube channel, and also, I believe, on social media as well. So Senators Dick Sears and Brian Campion will be joined by their 2 Republican challengers, Michael Hall and Mike Hansen, and independent candidate Kevin Hoyt, to bat around some of the issues that will be in play. And hopefully, Mother Nature will be a little more kinder to us this time around. Wait till at least we're done this time before sending rain and wind and whatever else our way. Anyway, again, my apologies for that. This one of those unfortunate bits of things. So we're going to wind it up there. Leave it for there for now. And again, just a quick reminder: if you haven't received your ballots already, boy, you better call the Secretary of State's office or something. I think they should all be out there by now. Anyway, obviously, if you can mail them in or bring them to your town clerk's office, we got 3 more weeks to go or so before the election. So every vote counts. Alrighty, that'll do it for today. Thank you very much for being with us. Again, Andrew McKeever for GNAT-TV and our news project. Hope you have a great weekend. We'll see you again next Friday. Take care.